Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with really kinky people. I really want to welcome everyone that's watching the show. Please send this link out to all of your friends. Tell them to come in and to join us. It would be absolutely awesome to have everyone come and join and watch the shows. But so today I've had a really interesting weekend. I was at DomCon all weekend, and it was an amazing time. If you're not in the chat room, please come to TSR Network and come into the chat room and hang out with us and ask us questions. And Lady Charlene is in the chat room. Welcome to see you. There's a few other people, too, that are coming in. We have people that are viewing. And I don't think people realize they've got to click on the player. Let me tell them. Hold on. Because we've got some new people that are in the chat room that have never been in here before, so they really don't know what really to do yet. So I just wrote in there, click on the player to watch the show. I went to DomCon. I was there periodically on and off all weekend long because of the fact that I have my daughter's dogs for the weekend, and so I wasn't able to experience DomCon like I normally do, but it was awesome. It was a great event. My friend from Miss Lily from Detroit came. In fact, she's here right now. They're having dinner outside by the pool, which is awesome. And I'm doing my show because I made a commitment. I almost canceled because I was stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. So we have people that are watching the show. I can see the numbers going up. Please, if you're watching the show, please go into the chat rooms, and all you got to do is just go into the chat room and click on guest if you don't want to come in with your Twitter or your Facebook account. Take out guest with numbers, delete that, type in the name that you want, and pick a little character and come on back in so we know who we're talking to. And you know, we're really excited. We've had over 63,000 people watch the show since we relaunched, which I am just ecstatic about. It's a huge success as far as getting people to watch the shows and people watching the videos. And also, let's see what else. We have two staff writers for TSR Network. We have Miss Cotty, and we also have Thisbe, so they're doing all the writing for TSR Network. I only do little teeny things, and I'm sorry if you guys have not gotten a quicker advertising on the fact of the show tonight, but because I was gone all weekend at DomCon, and then my guest from Detroit, we went shopping. We went to the Pleasure Chest. We went to 656. We went to what's the other place in Stockroom. Then they went looking for kinky shoes for they could dress someone up and to have some kinky shoes. So, and then I was stuck on the freeway, so we were running really late. We didn't know if we'd pull this off, but I got to tell you, the gentleman that I'm going to be interviewing, he was a genius with me because we were supposed to do testing, and because I was so fragmented, we didn't do any testing prior to the show. But within a few moments, he was able to get his lower thirds on. He was able to understand everything that I was saying, and I don't explain things too well, you know, kind of like half off and half bass, as you guys know me. You know, we have Top Drop has come into the chat room. Hello, Top Drop. Welcome. So please send this link out to all of your friends and come in and watch the show. Go on FetLife, smear FetLife with all of these things and let people know that we're going to be interviewing. And I'm going to pull up, I can't pull up my FetLife. So I'm going to introduce my guest, and I'm really excited about having him here. I've known him for a long time, and he does not recall me, which is awesome. So I have an advantage over him. And I can hear him laughing. He goes, you know, how do I know her? I want to introduce Robert Dante. He is an amazing person that deals with whips. He can control a whip like there's only two people that I know that can control whips like this, and that is Bullwhip, which I think Dante knows, and Robert Dante. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you. Good to be here tonight.
It's great to see you. So, you don't know where you met me for the very first time.
Nope.
I met you at Gemini Manor.
Wow. Oh, wow. I was just looking at pictures from my time there with Alex and everything. And the Fat Night things, Velvet Mask, I think it was, where we gathered every 2 weeks and put on some wild parties there. Yeah.
Yeah, I met you at Gemini Manor, and also I was at a few of your demos at the Lear de Sade.
Ah, yeah.
He had 2 whips going, whoo, 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 snapping, 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 and it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy to see the 2 whips, at the same time going like this. I mean, and I didn't even own a whip at that time. In fact, I don't even own one anymore. I gave mine away for Christmas one year to a wonderful young man who was kind of getting it soft, making it soft for me, and I didn't have enough money to give anybody Christmas presents, so he loved that whip, so I gave it to him for Christmas. So let's talk about, how did you discover your love for whips?
Woo. Well, I have 2 stories. One which is the truth, and the other for the vanilla world. The truth is that I was in a dungeon with some gay leathermen, and one of them was using a bullwhip on his bottom, and I was impressed with both of them. And I asked him if I could try it, and he sort of smirked and handed it to me and said, "Sure, knock yourself out," and I almost did. And it was tremendously humiliating. So I picked up a whip in the next 2 days at a tack shop, a 4-plat Texas bullwhip. I think they sold it for $10 a foot, like sausage.
I had one of those.
Yeah, they work. They work. And just over time, I kept throwing the whip out and throwing the whip out. Finally got it to crack when it was going away from me. And it's been a love affair that has not ended. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but so is writing. And those are the 2 most satisfying things that I do. So maybe, the taller the mountain, the better the feeling of victory.
Yeah, because when you were at DomCon, I mean not DomCon, when you were at the Lear de Sade and you were teaching classes, and I mean, you could make the whip do things that I've never seen before. I've only seen it on Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they crack the whip. And the sound that it made, I mean, it is, Oh, Charlene in the chat room says, they scare me.
They should. They should.
I was going to say that, but I felt that should be your line.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
that's one of the disappointing things about the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, is that the whips can do so much more than the stereotype thinks they can. Oh well.
Share with me what you think that they can do more. And
wait,
pardon?
You can crack around corners.
You can crack around a corner?
Yeah. In my stage thing, my assistant Mary, my wife, stands with a strip of styrofoam right here by her neck, and I stand behind her. I cannot see the strip. I make the whip crack right here. It comes through, cuts it. Afterwards, they're always looking at her like, "Where's the mark?" Because I haven't left a mark on her. And that's just skill. There's no cheat to it.
But that's her face.
Yes.
That would scare the hell out of me.
It scares the hell out of everybody who's watching, but we're comfortable with it because we know what we're doing. And the more vulnerable she appears, the more they invest in watching her escape from danger. People don't relate to me. I make it look too easy.
Yeah.
But they relate to her. Here's, the perils of Pauline. She's in danger,
Yeah.
Most of the people that I play with at events, they don't want to go full bore. So I'm usually playing at a very light 1 or 2 or sometimes up to 3 level. I don't even go over 5 very much anymore because there aren't too many bottoms out there who will do that.
Yeah. So,
but I don't have to. Yeah.
How long have you been throwing a whip? That's what it says? Is it called throwing? Is that the correct description?
Yes and no. It's a misnomer. The world calls it whip throwing.
Yeah.
It's actually whip pushing and whip pulling. So there's a lot more control than just throwing a whip out there. You can be very precise. I take quarters off people's tongues. There's even a video on YouTube about it. A young fellow, he dared me, didn't think I would. So asked me if I'd take a dime off his tongue.
Uh-huh.
And I said I wasn't crazy. I'll do a quarter. So you put the quarter on, and sure enough, I cracked it off his tongue. Did not touch him, but it scared the piss out of him, literally.
I would keep my tongue inside my mouth and not do it, because
No, there's always some crazy motherfucker gonna walk up to you after a show with a cigarette in his mouth and say, "Take it out." At the science fiction conventions, it's always the Klingons. They're always clustered in groups and egging each other on to stand in front of me with some sort of target, and I can see the sweat coming out under the headpiece, but nobody wants to back down.
So
it's really kind of fun.
You do vanilla events and also BDSM events, correct?
Yep.
Okay. What is it like to do a vanilla event and to actually see? Oh, Charlene in the chat room says I would have fainted. She says she served 3 tours in combat, so the sound of the whip scares her. And then she says she would faint if you did that to her tongue.
Well, my wife is a former Army paratrooper, so yeah, she's got that instinct to take risks as well, which was part of the reason we got together in the first place.
When did you get married?
Last October.
Oh!
It's my 4th time. My first wife's name was Wendy, my second wife's name was Mary, my third wife's name was Windy, my 4th wife's name was Mary. I'm seeing a pattern here.
Well, God, I've only been married once, and that was enough. I was 23 when I got a divorce, and that was enough. It was like I don't want to repeat. So
I figured like with the whip, I'd just keep trying till I got it right.
So how long did it take you to learn, what was the process that you went through to learn how to push and pull the whip? See, did I get it?
Much. Yeah, much. I was not able to get a straight story out of anybody. So I wrote letters, telephone calls, talked to everyone I could possibly find. And then along came the internet, and thank goodness. Finally, I just left it to the whip itself to tell me, this is true, this is not. Works, this does not. That's frankly why I wrote Let's Get Cracking, my book that you can get on Amazon, because I wanted a book out there that was the book I wanted or needed when I was starting to crack.
Yeah.
It would have saved me years.
So, when was your book published?
2008, and it's still selling well.
And how long did it take you to write the book?
6 months, but thinking about it took 5 years.
Oh, that's not
bad.
bad.
Notes and things.
Yeah. I think we're having a little problems with your camera. I think that it's going, the speed is, yeah, I'm looking, okay.
What shall I do?
There's nothing you can do. We're just going to walk it through and move through it, and I think it'll be fine because the conversation's going, and I'm enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
So for some reason, it doesn't seem like it's moving back to your camera. It looks like it's just staying on my camera. What do you guys think in the chat room? Is that happening? So sometimes Google Hangout sometimes acts up. which is okay with me, because as long as we have the audio is really, really important to have this conversation. So for someone that's new that's going to be trying their hand at single tail, you know, what would you tell them?
Oh my God. First, I would want to find out why they want to do it. There's a world of differences between wanting to just crack it and wanting to play with it and wanting to show off with it and just wanting to get really good with it. They're not all the same thing. So that's what I would find. I would also find out if they had sports in their history, particularly martial arts, because those folks with the Tai Chi and all, they seem to catch on a whole lot faster than other people.
Why do you think so?
Dancers as well, because of the body memory.
Yeah. What about artists?
Well, it is an art.
I'm talking about like painters and drawers and people that have to use that eye thing. Would they be able to really, you know, grasp onto it really easily?
Well, I think anybody can crack a whip. Anybody, if you've got the right teacher.
Yeah. I can crack a whip.
Yep.
And I can hit accurately, which is really important.
Then you're ahead of half the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I always hit my target. You know, it's that eye coordination thing, you know, it just...
Yep.
You get the feel, you move, you do it, and it wasn't easy for me to learn. But I think that, you know, doing the flogging and floggers too, I can always hit, you know, exactly where I'm going, and it's a bigger thing. So I got an idea. If you could do me a favor, click on your icon on the bottom, your little thumbnail. Click on that, and then click on mine again. That might release yours.
Release mine.
Yeah.
Okay, I click on mine. I click on yours again.
Yeah, and then make sure there's no blue thing around it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that will pop it back up again. For some reason, Google's acting up, but it's okay.
Okay. I can't get the blue off one or the other.
Oh, the blue's on both of them?
No, it's on one or the other.
Oh, then just double-click the one that it's on, or just click the one that's on. It will go off.
Good. Okay.
There. Yeah. For some reason, I don't know if it's a slow internet speed and it's just not clicking over. I don't know why it's not doing that. Charlene says, I don't even like single tail, even if I could watch a demo on Saturday night. Oh, I couldn't even watch a demo Saturday night on whips and single tail. She says it made me sick to my stomach. You know, Charlene, can you elaborate in the chat room of why it does? I mean, what does it pull out in you? I mean, it's really important because it does that to a lot of people. It really scares a lot of people. And I love the sound of a single tail cracking. It makes me horny.
Yes.
You know, if I was... So, while she's typing in, so we talked about, you know, you training and... I mean, did you just go out there and start using it on people, or did you have to use it, you know, in a different way and learn how to use it?
I walked into the world of it backwards. I finally was able to figure out how to crack the whip, and I was only using it in the dungeon with play partners. And the nice thing about the old Leathermen in Houston is they played heavy. So I got a chance to find out what my limits were, too, as well as theirs. And when somebody saw me cracking the whip and actually not hitting myself, they asked me if I could do it at a fundraiser. And it amazed me that just being able to stand there and crack a whip without tangling it up in the fire sprinklers or knocking something off a shelf put you miles ahead of anybody else. And folks would just sit there. The crack takes 0.2 of a second. So how do you stretch that out to 20 minutes?
Wow. And so how did you do? I mean, did you just keep cracking it and just do like a dance?
Well, I thought I had a 10-minute show, and it was over in about a minute. So
you did a 10-minute show, but it felt like 10 minutes?
No, it was over in a minute, but I thought it was a 20-minute show. So the time distortion came in. And that was the first time I had somebody, because I had so much time and I had to fill it up, that's the first time I had somebody stand in front of me with a newspaper. And I proceeded to cut it in half, 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 until all that was left was postage stamp size.
Wow, that would... How fast does a bullwhip or a single tail go? What's the speed on that? For people,
it's the sound barrier. It's all Newtonian physics. 761 miles an hour. When any moving object goes faster than that, you hear a boom, and that's exactly what's happening.
Is that when it hits the crack?
It cracks as it passes the sound barrier. The speed of the whip can actually get up to, some of the scientists are saying 900 or 1,000 miles an hour.
Okay, what would happen to somebody if you hit them with the single tail at that speed?
You could hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you didn't cut them, all that built-up energy would be flying into them, and we're basically jelly inside. It is not a good idea. When you hear the crack, the energy is expended. So if it cracks and then hits you, yeah, it'll sting, but you can live with it and, you know, add it to your memories and your education. But if it hits you before it cracks, that hurts. That hurts.
I can imagine. I can imagine. It's really amazing. I don't know if you guys are seeing him or just seeing the photograph, but every time I see him, I just see the photo. I hope that you guys are seeing him talking, because I find this very interesting. There are a lot of people that are watching this. Please come into the chat room and ask questions. We just had Puddles come into the chat room. Welcome. Welcome to the live show. And please type in questions into the chat room. We would love to get all your questions answered, your burning questions about single tails. Puddles says, I was lucky enough... Oh, let me move that up. She says, I was lucky enough to see him do a demo for OCLA many years ago. And
wow.
yeah, so you've got some followers in here that have been with you for a long time.
That's true, and it amazes me. It always amazes me, and I'm grateful.
I know when I asked you to be on the show, you said to me, why me?
Well,
I know
because I know that anybody can do it if they put their mind to it.
But not like you do. I'm serious.
Well, that's what everyone tells me.
I mean, you make bullwhips and single tails dance. I mean, there's not a lot of people can do that.
You can't make them do anything. You can let them dance, and you can dance with them. You know, if I look good, it's because the whips are making me look good, not the other way around.
Wow. Any mistakes that you've made in single tails?
Mistakes? Sure, I've cut 2 people.
And how did that make you feel?
Awful. Absolutely awful. I still do not like that feeling. When you're handling a whip, you need to be in control. You need to play below your level of capability, because the consequences can be tremendous. The first time was at a show when I went up to do a target shot with my target girl, and someone behind her took a photo with a flash camera. And I nicked her, and I cut her, and she was bleeding.
Oh, wow.
The second time, it was somebody turned an air conditioner on in the hall, and the air started moving differently, and I went for my target, and I was off like a 1/4 of an inch, but it was that 1/4 of an inch, that caught that person.
Oh, wow.
And I felt like crap.
That's not an oops moment. When you have a single tail or a bullwhip, or any type of whip in your hand, and you go oops, that's not a very good feeling.
Well, the bullwhip artist's prayer is very similar to the matador's prayer. Oh God, don't let me fuck up.
Well, it's good that people know that even the masters fuck up. because we in our lifestyle, I mean, you know, we talk about safe, sane, and consensual, but there's a lot of risks at what we do.
Yes. And there's so much, you know, in the world that we have no control over. The only thing you have control over is your reaction to it. That, ironically, gives you control over everything once again. But if you fuck up, fess up. They know you did, and you cannot pretend, you know, that you didn't do it. The irony there is that if you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that," they relax and say, "Oh, he's honest with me. Okay, I can trust him." And then they continue playing.
We just had Chris come into the chat room, and welcome, Chris. And we've got lots of viewers that are watching that are not in the chat room. Please come in. Puddles wants to know, how do you turn off light switch?
Well, if it's a clap on, clap off, it's obvious. If you turn on light switches, all you do is make the cracker crack right above it, and it flips it down to turn it on. You crack rising just below it. It'll catch it and turn it on.
And you've done, like you said, cigarettes, newspaper, candles?
Yeah, candles are fun.
What is the thing about people saying using a balloon? Can you use a balloon, actually use a balloon to learn how to do a single tail?
I have heard the same thing. One of the best ways I've heard is that folks take a balloon and spray it with shaving cream and then see how much of the shaving cream they can take off without popping the balloon. When I'm performing in the vanilla world, popping balloons is not always the easiest thing to do. It's more a function of how tight is that balloon, how much is it blown up, how secure is it so that it doesn't just absorb the blow, but the crack occurs right on the skin of it. It's those same skills that you take into the dungeon. So whip cracking in all the worlds is the same. It's just the applications that are different.
I never thought of putting shaving cream on a balloon. I mean, I've tried it with the balloon, you know, and it just seems the balloon keeps going and swirling around. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I've had some balloons that made me wonder if they were made by Trojan, you know?
So, how many... I don't have my paper in front of me because he knows that I've been running around all day today. You know, he knows that I've been gone all day, and we just got the show. So, on your FetLife profile, you have a lot of things posted about different things that you've done. Could you please, because I don't have my paper in front of me, or else I would read some of it. Could you please tell people about what is on your profile on FetLife?
You mean the stuff I've got the bragging rights for?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I'm a 4-time Guinness World Record holder. I hold the current record for the fastest whip in the world. I hit 10 targets in, what was that, 2.85 or about 3 seconds accurately. I used to hold the one for the most whip cracks in 1 minute. I got up to 254. The current world record holder holds it at 257.
Wow. Wow. That's fast.
That's fast. Most candles put out in 60 seconds? 91.
You put out 91 candles?
No, I put out 74.
Yeah.
The person who holds the record right now, they had a Guinness show where China's best whip cracker went up against Adam Winrich in the United States, and Adam beat him by 1 candle.
Oh my God! Are you in training to do this again?
Nope, I've had 4 surgeries on my shoulders. I'm having problems with my ulnar nerves. It's a young man's game. I'm very happy to teach and to share what I've known and what I've gathered over the decades, but I'm not going to dye my hair dark or to pretend that I'm at my prime. I'm not. I'm just having more fun than I ever did.
You're getting married. You got married again, so that has to be fun. So, Can somebody do damage to themselves, to their joints, and to like their shoulders if they do it wrong, repeatedly? Throwing a whip.
Probably. Yeah. You've got the golfer's elbow. You've got tennis elbow. You've got carpal tunnel. That's why one of the nice things about the way I teach is that most folks will not get that if they use these techniques.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that I'm having problem is that I'm diabetic and I have a thyroid problem. When you combine those, you wind up with adhesive capsulitis, which is not enough lubricating fluid in the joints. So mine was just the irony, like Beethoven going deaf. Suddenly I had a frozen shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
So it was very, very depressing for a while. I tried to retire, but it hurt worse trying to retire than it did trying to recuperate after working out with the whip.
So the whip is, you need to, because I have arthritis in my knees and I have arthritis in my body, and I always have to be moving. The more stable that I am, the more that I don't move around, the less that I'm able to move. Robert, why don't we try something? I want you to turn off your camera and turn it back on, because I want to see you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Let me see.
You know how to do that? Highlight the top.
I'm trying to blow it out, but it won't go.
No.
Okay, let me.
I'm talking.
Okay, this is a modern one. I'm gonna. I hesitate.
Oh no. Hello.
To do anything. Hello.
No, we're going to go on the icon. Remember I talked to you about the icons, how to mute everything?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's mute your camera.
Mute the camera.
Or turn it off, there, and then turn it back on. Not turn it back on. And let's see if this helps any. Turn it back on?
Yes.
Okay. It has to be in the video feed. So it's not.
Can folks see us?
They can see me. I'm not sure if they can see you. Can you guys see him? But we're hearing their voice, which is great. So, if somebody's in the chat room, please type in, yes, we can still see him.
I could have done this without shaving?
Yes, and I was having the same problem, too, so I was clicking back and forth. You mean I could have done this without shaving, too?
Whoa.
I know, it's pretty bad.
So, that's a good one, though.
So, what are some of the questions that people ask you about whips?
There's always new questions. Always new questions. Some of the ones that are the traditional ones are, haha, do you ever use that in the bedroom? That's the vanilla audiences. The BDSMers, they want to know how fast they can learn. When do they know enough to be able to use it in a playroom? That sort of thing. Who's the best whip maker? What's the best whip? Blah, 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 blah. There is no best.
What is your favorite whip maker?
He's retired, Mike Murphy.
Oh, out in Australia.
Yep.
Yeah.
They still set the standard. There's some good whip makers in the United States, more than there used to be. But right now, I think Australia still leads the pack.
Do you think that because BDSM has become so popular that we have more whip makers?
Oh, hell yeah.
And
all the vanilla whip makers know that their whips are being used in dungeons and playrooms. David Morgan himself does not think they're having dog sled races in Manhattan.
Do they like it? Do they like the fact that we're using them in dungeons?
As long as, it's not an in-your-face kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
The material that the whips are made out of. I know that there's different. Can you kind of explain to people what each of the thing is called? Because maybe there might be people that are watching the show that are vanilla that know nothing about whips.
Okay. Well, a whip is a translator. It takes a big circle and turns it into a small circle as it travels. as that circle gets smaller, like an ice skater doing a spin, as they pull their arms in, they spin faster. The whip itself, at that point, starts traveling faster in order to keep the equation balanced. That's why it can actually do some real damage. It at least breaks the sound barrier when it gets to that point. And that can be done even with a very slow movement.
Mm-hmm.
Very slow. So there's... what was your question?
Like there's different names for different parts of the whip, right?
Ah, yep. You got your handle, you got your Turk's head, which is the little knobby thing on the end of the handle. You got the braided part, and that's the thong. And then you got the lacy part, and that's called the fall. And then you got the cracker.
When did you get an Italian accent?
Probably when I was about 2 years old. I lived there for 3 years, and it was the first language I spoke.
Oh, that was cute. I liked it. You know, my grandmother's Sicilian. Well, she was Sicilian. My father's Sicilian. He's full Sicilian. So, you know, that little Italian, you know, there's a certain, you know, ring to it.
Oh, yeah, I love Italian. It's in the present tense. English has too much thought in it, and it's too slippery. Words do not mean the same for two people.
Do you speak Italian?
A little, not as much as I used to, of course.
Yeah, I don't speak any at all. Charlene in the chat room says, how do you play with someone like me who is absolutely scared of the whips to assure my safety?
Well, there's a variety of ways you can do that. First of all, what I tell everyone when they start to play with somebody, first make a big loud crack, nowhere near the bottom. Because even if you just brush it against them like a paintbrush, holding just the last 4 inches, they may feel that and there's no crack there, but the crack is in their head. They still have that. Fear can be a turn-on. It's not just the fight or flight syndrome. It's the fight, flight, or fuck syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So when folks get tremendously turned on, when it becomes an intense experience, yeah, you get aroused. So there's a variety of ways. The best way is to watch the person with the whip in the dungeon who's just hitting the same little ring on the cross over and over and over again. You can figure he's going to show that kind of precision when he's playing with you. Somebody is just trying to make it crack as loud as he can and show off that way. A whipsterbator is not going to be somebody you will probably have a good scene with.
Mm-hmm.
When I was learning how to hurt people, even though I was pretty good with the whips already by then, there was still, when you stand in front of somebody with a whip in your hand, everything you know goes out the window. And that's when you're going to make mistakes, when you start trying to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they got a bottom for me and had me stand behind him with my whip, and they put a leather jacket on him. And that was terrific because he felt it, but he wasn't going to get beaten up or sliced to pieces. I've seen folks put a towel around their necks. Usually the head is bowed down if you're playing.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's belts, things like that that go around the area, base of the spine, that you don't want to be worried about. So there's all kinds of things that you can do. You can use a cracker that's very soft and fluffy and fuzzy, and basically it's like hitting them with a mop. You know, that's much less likely to cut than a cracker that's very thin and very tight.
I like the idea of putting like a leather jacket or a leather vest onto somebody, and so they're not fearful of being cut or fearful of having a problem with it. And I've never heard anybody say that before. I like that.
I'm surprised. It's the intensity that makes an SM experience, not the severity.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of my ex-slaves, I never felt a single tail on me, so I wanted to feel it because, you know, I was learning how to you know, to throw one or to push and pull. Okay, and
say throw. It's much easier.
Throw.
We all share the same language.
Thank you. So so I had, you know, my top off, and you know, he was in front of me holding me. And he watched the single tail come to me and grace me and hit me, and it was a really interesting experience for both of us to experience. He visually watched it, and because I've never ever,
Yeah.
you know, had it done before, so we both shared this experience. I mean, you
Yeah,
got to.
it gives a back and forth. One person gets high off the other one's experience. If there are two pianos in a warehouse and they're both perfectly tuned, hit middle C on one piano, the middle C on the other one will vibrate. It's harmonic resonance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're standing there holding somebody like that, the thing that's coming, they might be feeling the physical part of it, but you're getting the emotional part too.
Yeah, it was quite an experience for the both of us to go through, because he got to see also the sensuality of it, because he never had a single tail used on him, and I kind of took it for the team. If I could do it, then then he felt that he could, and I mean, and I had a submissive that Bullwhip, which you know Bullwhip, here in Los Angeles.
He's a tall man.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
He is. He's the epitome of the teddy bear.
He
You
is.
just want to hug him.
Well, what he
But
does
I probably couldn't get my arms around him though. He's that big.
Yeah, he's a big guy, but he comes. I teach at the Lear Assad. I've been teaching there for the last 10 years. Every other Saturday, I do their S&M open form class, and he always comes to the classes, and he always does this free thing where he afterwards he'll teach people how to use a single tail, and he'll answer all the questions. I mean, how important is education in what we do?
Education is important in anything that you do. You want to know what the possibilities are, because if it can fuck up, it will. I don't like being surprised when I'm working with a whip. I like being amazed, but there's a difference. The folks that go to the lair and chat with Bullwhip and pick up from him could do a lot worse. He's got a lot of respect and a lot of understanding for the whips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he has a lot of respect for the whip, and he talks a lot about safety. So, in your bag where you carry your whip, what else do you carry to go alongside it?
I usually take my repair box, so I can make crackers, so that I can trim falls, so that I can do repairs and not have to send the whip back out to the whip maker. In the bag I'll have some Picards or JL
and what
leather conditioner.
Those are leather conditioners. Those are your two favorite ones that you like? What is so special about Picard?
Picard? Basically, most leather conditioners for whips are the same thing. Picard's is just a little bit different because it uses a variation on oil, gelatin. Can't remember the word for it. It's like petroleum. It uses some petroleum in it, and you don't want to use neat's foot oil on your whip because it will burn the whip the same way it would burn your skin if you poured it on. But Picard's has a neutral way of doing it, and it just goes on a little lighter, it sinks in a little deeper. A little goes a long way with Picard's, yeah.
When you get a new single tail, I mean, how do you prepare it? Because normally they're very hard. I mean, they're not soft. They're not like butter. It takes a long time to break one in. Is that the correct terminology? Is that you've got to break one in?
Yeah, yeah.
And how
long? A
long
lot of the whip makers, what they'll do is they'll put a shellac, a veneer over the final whip to make it all clean and gleamy. You need to work that out. I have heard that the best leather conditioner for any whip is the sweat of your own hands. So the idea is you just want to work it and work it and work it until it finally breaks in. Some whip makers, theirs break in a little faster than others. Some of them make whips that are like sticks with tassels on the end. They never break in. You have to go by the whip maker, what the material is as well. If it's a very dense hide kangaroo, it's twice as strong as cow leather and half the weight, so it's the preferred substance that whip makers will make their whips out of, because you can get a really tight braid, and the tighter the braid is, when you pick up your whip, if you feel it and it's like a rock, that's pretty good. All that energy is going to go all the way through and compound until it comes out the end. If it's loosely braided, or if it's using cow leather, or nylon whips have the same problem. It's just the inner porosity of the material makes the whip lose its energy as the friction works against the wave moving down the whip.
Mm-hmm.
So you wind up learning a couple of bad habits, unconsciously or consciously, by throwing harder and faster in order to get the same effect. If you've got a really well-made whip, it will crack itself. All you're doing is being there to guide it. The Texans have an expression, ride the horse in the direction it's going. A 90-pound rider cannot wrestle an 1,100-pound horse to the left or the right. They get the energy moving and then guide it to the left or the right, and it's the same with the whips.
With nylon, are nylon whips as good as leather whips?
Yes, if they're well made. There are a couple of drawbacks, but that's usually just due to the material itself, the lightness of it, the porosity. So you wind up having to throw a little harder and a little faster. The leather whip may hang gracefully. The nylon whip will look all kinky and wonky until it starts to move. And as you swing it, the strands tighten and it begins to function like a whip.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have a snobbish opinion or attitude towards nylon whip makers. There are some very good ones out there.
Well, it's good that you don't, because, mankind keeps producing new types of materials. And if people are closed-minded and they can't think out of the box, and how are we going to create things that are even better than what we've had prior? It talks about creativity using nylon. So do you have to do anything different to a nylon one, or do you treat it the same way that you treat a leather one?
I'm more likely to clean it with 409 than to use leather conditioner on it.
409, really?
Yeah.
Oh, will that deteriorate?
It's just to clean the darn thing. I like to use light whips, gold whips, yellow whips, that sort of thing, and they tend to pick up the scuffs and dings of daily activity.
And do they last as long as leather ones?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. How many whips
do you take care of the leather one, it'll last you 25, 30 years. If, a nylon whip, of course.
Is it not keeping it, like putting Picard on it or putting something, or working it? If you don't do that, what happens to the whip?
Well, if it gets dried out, it's going to become stiff. It's going to perhaps crack. It's going to do everything that human skin does if it dries out too much. So what you want to do is to put enough of it on it that it sinks in a bit. It's usually the fall, that lace thing at the end, that needs it most often. After that, it's the end of the whip. You don't need to condition the handle at all, or down towards that other end of the whip every couple of years for the whips I use.
And what they have Charlene in the chat room says, what are your thoughts on, is it quartz? Quartz. Yeah. Quartz. What is your thoughts on quartz? What is a quartz?
I love them. A quart is kind of like a pig slapper. It's sort of like a whip without a cracker.
Uh-huh.
There's some good ones out of Mexico, Argentina, that sort of thing. They're usually very, very fancy braids. And if you tied a cracker onto them, it probably would crack like a whip. It's the sort of thing that the vaquero would keep around his, in his wrist, about 3 feet long, to urge his horse on.
Uh-huh. Oh wow, I didn't know what they were. So a cracker. Let's talk about crackers. So, because remember, this might be vanilla people watching this, so I just want them to hear some. I'm going to play dumb. Okay. That's what I love to do. You play the. Yeah, I'm now
okay,
gray.
I will suspend my disbelief.
Yeah, I've now that I have gray hair, I can be dumb and gray instead of blonde and dumb. So on a cracker, you use it as many times as you possibly can with as many different people, correct?
Nope.
Why?
Nope. You can buy crackers from a whip maker. He will sell you a dozen for $5, I'm sure, but it's usually easier to make your own. And you can make them as thick or as thin, as long or as short as you want them to be, and they will still function as crackers. If I'm doing wraps around somebody, I will use a long cracker because I like to get that around the arm, around the finger, you know, the sensual aspect. If I'm doing fast cracking, I will use a shorter cracker because they're less likely to tangle. The materials can be silk, used to be horsehair, they can be polyester. I like Mason's twine myself because you can not the braided kind, the kind that's twined around like rope, because you can separate them out and use them. And the nice thing about the Bullwhip that I prefer over this one of the things I like about the Bullwhip is that with the fall, you can go ahead and replace the cracker in between the people you're playing with so that you don't cross-contaminate. And if you're wearing your cracker out, you can replace it quickly in order to get the thing functioning again. Did you know that fuzzy part on the end of the cracker? If you trim half of it a little bit shorter than the other one, when you crack it, you will hear 2 pitches.
So you do one and you hear it, and then if you trim it shorter, it will be a different sound.
You'll hear the 2, yeah.
Really?
Really? Try it.
I've got to buy another single tail. You know, I'm just not cracking the things like I used to do, you know?
Well, you know, what I like is that what I've learned with the whip, I have been able to apply it to the flogger. I've been able to apply the techniques to anything that I'm using in my hand. It really has been quite an experience, quite a life. The whips have been very, very nice to me, and it's been my pleasure to share that with people.
Did it change your life? Did whips change your life?
Writing and whips have been the only constant in my life. Everything else has been in a constant state of upheaval where I seem to have a momentary respite.
Speaking of writing, once again, where can people get a hold of your book and the name of it, please?
Well, it's called Let's Get Cracking, the How-To Book of Bullwhip Skills. It's on Amazon. Or if you're near an event that I'm doing, and you can see that at bullwhip.xxx, I will probably have some with me. And this is probably a nice place to admit that I'm coming out with my 3rd book in June. It's a book of my poetry. Yes, I am a poet. I've published about 100 times, and I've had one other book published along that way. So it's called Sex in the Age of the Hazmat Suit.
Wow. I didn't know you did poetry. If I would have known, I would have had you read something.
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't tell you before then.
I would have. Writing is such a great release, isn't it?
Sometimes.
I mean, I like writing erotica, you know. So, you know, female erotica.
I've got a lot of respect for the people who can actually do that and do it well. Laura Antonio, you know, particularly. Wow.
So you're way out in Minnesota.
Yeah. They got the best health care in the United States.
Are you picking up the accent?
Well, I guess I am, you know.
Yeah, because I was hearing it earlier. I was like, is that Canadian?
They're very close. Minnesota is the closest the United States has to Canadians. With the folks in the government and in the police and all that, it's not a sense of you know, us versus them. It's that we're all on the same boat, and please help me, let me do my job better.
But you've traveled all over the country. I mean, I've
traveled all over the world. Yeah.
You've lived in different places too, because you used to also didn't you also live here in Los Angeles?
Yes, I lived in Santa Monica for about 5 years, 6 years.
And how can you take the cold weather?
Actually, it was because of the cold weather that I left Los Angeles. I saw that I was starting to go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I only needed to have one change of clothes. I did not need different clothes for different seasons. There's only one season, and it's always a bright blue sky. And whether it's the 4th of July or Christmas, it's the same damn looking day. And I just found myself going slightly crazy. I realized I need seasons. I need to reconnect with the earth. So I love to visit Los Angeles. I'll be there in July, in fact, doing something at the at Threshold and at the stock room. So if folks want to come by and see what I'll be doing there, that will be great fun. Because, as we know, a pleasure shared is twice the pleasure.
Well, make sure that you have permission for me to post on the TSR Studio group, when you're going to be out here, because I think that a lot of people that are watching this would love to, especially the people here in Los Angeles, would love to come out and see you.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know how many times did you teach at the Lear? And
Dozens. Honestly, I lost count. I lost track.
So
I was just grateful to be invited back. So I kept bringing my best game.
Well, I hope that I can invite you back here also when we can get your camera working better. I don't know why it went off, but at least we get to hear your voice, and your picture comes up, every time you talk. So that's okay. They get to see your photograph. So
okay.
So you'll come back someday too to TSR Network?
I hope so. If you'll invite me, I will be there.
I would love to have you back. And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I have no earthly idea. I'm working on a film script. I'm working on dioramas. I'm hoping to get the ball rolling so that we can get Whip cracking as an Olympic event. There's all kinds of things. I have no idea what is going to happen. I didn't know where I would be 5 years ago.
Wow. Any regrets?
Oh, a bunch.
Yeah?
But show me the person who's lived who doesn't have regrets.
And you don't have to share them with me. I was just asking. And what I'm doing right now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, because my camera got a lot brighter, is because I'm opening up some photographs to end the show. So. Okay. We've got a minute. We've got a minute to go. So once again, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, you can go at bullwhip.net or bullwhip.xxx, or you can catch me on Facebook as Robert Dante, or you can catch my tweets at Whip Dante. I am the most accessible person probably in the United States. Here's my phone number: 831. Yes, my number is still from Pacific Grove, California, even though I haven't been there in 10 years.
Oh, that was adorable. It's like all of a sudden you'll be getting, because this is all over the world, and this stays on this forever. So
well, I go where I'm invited. I go where I'm invited, and I'm very low maintenance. And yeah.
That was hysterical. That was absolutely that was absolutely hysterical. Well, Robert Dante, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show, and I've really enjoyed it. And I would love to have you back on. And when you come out to Los Angeles, please keep me informed that you're going to be out here, and I would love to, come and see you either at the stockroom or at Threshold.
Be very much my pleasure.
And this has been wonderful. And for all the people that have watched the show tonight, we don't know why cameras are acting strange. Maybe Google Plus did some strange things. We don't care. Life is to be grateful for what you have, grateful for your friends and the people that love you and the people that you love, and for your experiences, and grateful for having people like Robert Dante, who consented to come onto the show and to experience what it's like to be on TSR Network. And now he's in our archive. We have 10 years of archives of people from Guy Baldwin to Midori to Jay Wiseman, and now we have Robert Dante, and this is our leather history, this is our BDSM history, and we have it documented, and we just want to thank all the people that have watched the shows. There's 2 people that are still in the chat room, like Charlene and Puddles, and there was Chris and other people that were coming in, and top whatever it was, so sorry, top roll. And for all the people that watched the show that did not come into the chat room, next time come into the chat room and get the real experience of it. So I want to thank you all for watching the Rev Mel Show here on TSR Network, where we are changing the world one day at a time. And in BDSM, we are one. Thank you. Here we go. Woo!